going on, everybody? Know nobody's watching us. All right, so here we go. Dang, we look professional. Not really. Know nobody's watching us. All right. It's a joke, people. We're not. Well, we are. We are, but we're not. Anyway, all right. So today we are gathered online to talk about the Bill 581. First off, we only got 280 people in this group. If you can invite your friends and families and Twiggs and Wilkinson, it don't even matter. This is a statewide thing. Yeah. So, and a lot of people are opting out. So we did some research. Miss Vanessa came by and gave me the documents on the frequent asked questions. You can get these online, okay? Or we will upload them after the video. So what we're going to start with is the summary of the House bill. And we have these documents also. You want to go through them real quick?
We have the summary of the House Bill 581. We have a comparison of House Bill 581 versus the original homestead exemption. We have the impact of opting out of the HB 581 floating homestead exemption. And then we have the impact of House Bill 581 on school funding.
Yeah. So you can just, Ashley's going to start reading the documents. If you have any questions of what we're going over or what we're talking about or how it can impact in different scenarios, just send us a message. If we can't answer it through the live, we will answer it after the live. And if we can't find out, we will find someone that can find it out. So, she's going to go ahead.
All right, so what the summary of the House bill is really just a summary of what you can find on the ACCG website. So this document just explains House Bill 581, which introduces two key concepts. So local opt-out floating homestead exemption. It limits increases in taxable property value to the inflation rate, providing predictability for homeowners regarding property taxes. And local governments can choose to opt out of this exemption through a public process if they decide it doesn't suit their needs. The article also talks about FLOST, which is floating local option sales tax. This is a new sales tax up to 1% aimed at providing property tax relief by offsetting revenue loss due to the homestead exemption. Funds are distributed based on agreements between counties and cities, benefiting communities with significant external sales revenue. So this is how it works in real life. So for homeowners, if your county implements the floating homestead exemption, the taxable value of your property will not rise beyond the inflation rate annually, even if the market values soar. So this stabilizes tax bills and helps budget. For an example, if inflation is 2% and your home's assessed value is $200,000, the taxable value increase is capped at $4,000 rather than a sharp market-driven spike. For local governments, counties and cities must decide whether to implement the exemption or opt out. So opting out involves public hearings and a formal resolution.
And which the school board is doing. And that's the biggest discussion. And there's, I think there's confusion.
Tomorrow, right?
Yes, tomorrow. So be there. It's Friday. Show up by the hundreds. And just know what we're talking about. And these we will be uploading, like I said, on the files. And you can download them, print them out, and take them with you. And if you want the original, if you want to read the big pamphlet, you can go right ahead and do that too. This just summarizes and just kind of explains what's in it.
So the local governments can also They can also decide to impose the FLOST, which requires a local referendum and agreement with municipalities. So for communities, so areas with significant retail activity benefit most from the FLOST, as it shifts the tax burden partially onto consumers, including visitors, rather than property owners. An example is a tourist-heavy city could use FLOST to reduce property taxes for residents without losing revenue. So that was just a quick summary of the House bill.
Anything you want to touch bases on or highlight after? So the whole.
No, so I think.
That's going to be where.
Yeah, I think when we compare them.
So what we're going to do is we're going to compare House Bill 581 versus the original homestead exemption. And, you know, the first question is, does the opting out affect the original homestead exemption? And it's yes. I'll leave that with you.
Okay, so does opting out affect the original homestead exemption? Yes, if the county school board or local government opts out of the House Bill 581 floating homestead exemption, the original homestead exemptions in place will still apply.
So yes, so if they opt out, you will still be protected through the original homestead exemption as we understand it through here.
So it doesn't affect.
It doesn't affect, I'm sorry.
It doesn't affect the original homestead exemption, sorry.
Correct.
So no, if they do opt out of it, it will not affect the original homestead exemptions in place. So existing homestead exemptions remain. House Bill 581 does not eliminate your existing homestead exemption. If your county or jurisdiction already has a fixed dollar or base year homestead exemption in place, it will still continue to apply. More favorable exemptions applies for jurisdictions where multiple homestead exemptions might overlap. Example, a base year exemption and the floating exemption under HB 581. Taxpayers generally receive the exemption that provides the greatest benefit. What happens if HB 581 is opted out? If the local government opts out of HB 581, taxpayers will not receive the floating homestead exemption benefits. For example, capping the taxable value increase to inflation. Instead, their property taxes will be based on the fair market value as usual, minus the existing exemptions. This means they will only benefit from an existing homestead exemption already provided by local law. Alright, so for example, if the original homestead exemption provides a flat $5,000 reduction in assessed value,
which it does $20,000 as we know it.
Okay, that will still apply after opting out of a House Bill 581. If the original exemption is a base year exemption that locks the taxable value of the home at purchase value without inflation adjustments, it will continue to apply. So which exemption is better for homeowners? The choice between opting into the House Bill 581 floating homestead exemption and retaining the original homestead exemption depends on several factors. So HB 581 floating homestead exemption. Some advantages of this bill are capped tax increases, which limits the annual increase in taxable property value to the rate of inflation.
And so I'm going to make a note on that. And so what you got to think about is there's a reevaluation going to happen in Twigs eventually. We know it's coming. So whenever it comes, this is where we got to be careful of what we want. You know, do we want this bill or do we not want this bill? But it sounds like to me they will get the greater benefit. So it's kind of confusing. It's a very confusing thing, and we're trying to figure this out. We don't know everything, but we know what we know, and we're here to share it, of course. But you got to think about, okay, if tax assessors comes out, you know, evaluates your home at $100,000, you know, 10 years ago. And now they're coming out and saying, well, now it's worth $200,000. This bill would prevent that from for you paying taxes on $200,000. Ain't that right?
Yeah. So it's saying the only time it should go up is if with inflation.
Right.
Not inflation and fair market value.
Right.
So another advantage of House Bill 581 is predictability. Provides homeowners with a stable and predictable tax bill. comprehensive coverage. It applies to all millage rates except bonded indebtedness. The disadvantage of House Bill 581 is inflation adjustment. So taxable value still increases with inflation. It also says it may not be the most generous. It may offer less relief compared to some existing exemptions. And then now on to the original homestead exemption. So some advantage of the original exemption is established benefits. So you have consistent relief, for example, flat dollar reductions. And then you have base year exemptions, which is another advantage, which locks taxable value, especially beneficial in area with rising property values. The disadvantage of the original homestead exemption is limited coverage. It says it might apply to fewer millage rates, and there's less protection in rising markets. So taxes can rise sharply with property values. So the recommendation is that House Bill 581 is better in areas with rapidly increasing property values.
Yep.
And the original exemptions are better in stable markets or when they offer generous reductions or older base years.
Right. And so here's the kicker. Right now we would want to go with this. But if they come out and reevaluate everything and say now your building is worth double the amount, then we are better with the HB 581, correct? As we understand this.
Yeah, so from my understanding, so the only thing about House Bill 581 is when it's opted out, you can't opt back in.
That's right. So I feel like at that point in time, we as the people should want the better for homeowners, because obviously, and we're going to get into the comparison of how it benefits the school, how it negatively impacts the homeowners, and all that good stuff. So stay with us.
All right. So this is the impact of opting out of House Bill 581 floating homestead exemption. So if the county school board opts out of the floating homestead exemption under House Bill 581, the impact on citizens will depend on several factors. There's a breakdown of potential positive and negative effects. Potential negative impacts. Higher tax burden for homeowners. Without the exemption, property taxes on homesteads will be based on fair market value, which can increase significantly in rising markets. This can result in unpredictable and potentially steep tax hikes for homeowners, making budgeting more difficult. Another negative impact, reduced equity for tax relief. So House Bill 581's floating homestead exemption aims to protect homeowners by capping taxable value increases to inflation rates. Opting out removes this benefit, leaving homeowners exposed to market-driven assessments. Another negative impact, barrier to future options. Right. If the school board opts out now, it cannot opt back in to House Bill 581 later.
Correct.
Any similar exemption in the future would require new legislation and a local referendum limiting flexibility.
So that's important. So it ain't something we can just pick and choose to go in and out of.
Yeah.
So once you're out, you're out. And if they, like I said, if they reevaluate, I keep talking about that. Like our building here, and say we were in Twigs, and our building is worth $200,000. They come out, oh, you're worth $400,000. There's nothing there to protect you. And someone told me, and I haven't researched this, but this bill was designed for in Atlanta and places, big cities, where people were just raising in the property value, and there was nothing there to protect the people and the homeowners and business owners and stuff like that. So that's why I feel like this was made to protect homeowners, business owners, and so forth. So
another negative impact is ineligibility for FLOST, which is the floating local option sales tax.
And I feel like we would benefit from this.
If the school board opts out, the county and the municipalities will lose the ability to levy a FLOST for property tax relief. This could result in higher reliance on property taxes to fund schools, affecting all property owners, not just homeowners. So if you're ineligible for FLOST, that's not only affecting homeowners, it's also affecting commercial property owners.
Correct. So you don't even get that as part of the bill, because you have to be part of the bill to receive that. Correct.
Mm-hmm. Which could also, from my understanding, hurt the school in the end, because Twist County's properties are not always, I guess you could say, valued high. So you're going to rely back on property taxes to fund the schools.
Yeah.
So the positive impacts of opting out of House Bill 581: stable revenue for schools.
Which they got enough revenue. But anyway, side note.
By opting out, the school board ensures its revenue stream remains tied to actual fair market property values. This could prevent shortfalls caused by the homestead exemption, particularly in areas with fluctuating property values.
So what that's saying is, let's just say they do come in and say this building's worth $400,000. Now that school's not getting that extra $200,000 worth of revenue off of taxes. But let's be honest, I feel like school gets enough tax. I feel like county gets enough tax. We're taxed to death already. So I'm thinking I'm more of a favor of this, because it still protects us. Now, if we already went through the revaluation and our properties already went up, then of course it don't matter. But I feel like it's coming. So
another positive impact is consistency across taxpayers. If the school board has an existing base year or other homestead exemption, opting out avoids overlapping exemptions, which could reduce confusion for taxpayers and administrative complexity. Another positive impact is no impact on non-homeowners. Citizens who rent or own commercial properties are unaffected by the homestead exemption, meaning their tax obligations remain the same. Opting out could be seen as fairer across the entire taxpayer base.
So I'm gonna make a note on that. So this is a direct cost. Okay, so think about this, right? Mm-hmm. If we come in, say our building or any business, or homeowners just don't really apply to, but it applies to gas stations, it applies to our business, it applies to any other business that you go and you pay funds for, insurance, Poppy's Place, like anybody, and their taxes go up. They're going to compensate for that. So what's going to happen is they're going to drive their prices up. And everything's gonna go up to compensate for that tax if we do, right?
So what they're saying is opting out. I'm not sure, because it says opting out does not affect commercial properties.
We got a question. Could this have been a what? Okay.
Could this have been a political setup? I have read too many county school boards planning to do this for it not to have been a topic of discussion before the voting public was aware of it. So
here's the thing. We already voted on it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we have voted on this, and most was 2,000. I'll have to come back. I'll make a comment later. But I have the printout sheet of the vote for this bill. The people want this bill.
Yeah.
In the
November election, we voted on was it HR 10 something.
Yeah.
Which was a result of the House Bill 581 being passed back in March. So this House resolution, I think it was called. I don't remember.
We'll come back to it.
Yeah.
But what we're saying is, so to answer this.
So they're asking if it could have been a political setup. Because so it wasn't really a big topic of discussion before voting.
Okay.
I think that's what they're saying. So, I mean, most of the time I feel like half the stuff is a political setup.
Yeah, so we'll circle back to that and kind of do some more on that.
But I mean, it easily could have been, but it easily could not have been. I mean, I feel like that's honestly
Here's what happens.
Without us knowing the truth.
Right, and doing the research, and because a lot of people, they see the bill, they're in there voting, they're like, oh, I don't know if this will benefit, so most people skip it, or some people get confused on it, because let's be honest, who has time to sit down and really thoroughly go over all this stuff to see what's going to happen? But that's what we're doing here.
But I think saying a political setup is kind of just what you think about politics, honestly.
Yeah, so
it very well could have been, but who knows?
So where were we at?
I don't know.
We were talking.
I was right here, yeah.
We were talking about how
The
it does
impact
the
on
impact on non-homeowners.
So there's no impact on non-homeowners.
Correct, but that's directly. Indirectly, it does, because if our value goes up and we have higher taxes, we're going to change our hourly rate. We're going to change, and we're going to compensate for that. And so what you're going to see is everything's going to push more inflation, and that's how it works. So that's how I feel like it works.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that one's however you look at it, because if you opt out of it, you're ineligible for FLOST.
Right.
Which is supposed to help businesses, right?
Correct.
But if you... Okay. So it's like it's saying that if you opt out of it, it'll negatively... You won't be able to get the FLOST. So that, in my opinion, is negatively affecting retail.
Right. Which would be our business. It'd be Poppy's place. It would be...
So, but it's also saying that a positive impact of opting out is that it doesn't impact non-homeowners. So it's kind of like... Alright, so here's the next part of the thing. It says who benefits and who pays.
Right.
So this is still under the impact of opting out of House Bill 581. So
Right.
Who benefits and who pays? Homeowners generally lose as their taxable property values would not be capped by inflation. Non-homeowners are likely unaffected as the exemption does not apply to them. School boards gain a stable revenue stream tied to fair market values.
So that's what you really
So that's why the school wants to opt out of this, because they're the only ones that gain.
Yes. So that's what you need to know. Hey, they're the only one that gains out of this, because if our building goes up $200,000 in value, and this is a bill, they miss that taxes off that $200,000.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying. But this bill protects us from that.
Yes.
Right.
I don't know if it protects the business.
Well, what I'm saying is we wouldn't have to pay that extra $200,000 or homeowner. It's the same thing with a homeowners. Forget the business. But what I'm saying is, I mean, there's businesses and there's homeowners, so you got to look at it from different perspective here.
Yeah. So it says overall, opting out is likely to negatively affect homeowners by increasing their property tax liability over time. However, it may stabilize and secure school funding, which benefits the broader community if the additional revenue is used effectively to improve education quality.
And that's where we're like that, because we're going to talk about education later. We're going to focus on this, but if you want to see anything else, you do your own research, you see what the school's budget is, you see what they spend on, you look at their salaries, and you tell me, is our tax money being used effectively in great ways? Like, that makes sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, this is on the school funding.
All right, so this is on the school funding. So we're just dig into
All right,
this.
so this one says impact of House Bill 581 on school funding. Will House Bill 581 take away funding from schools? If the school board opts into the House Bill 581 floating homestead exemption, it could potentially reduce funding for schools by limiting the taxable property values, thereby lowering property tax revenues. Here's how it works. Revenue reduction. Since the exemption caps annual increases in taxable value to the inflation rate, Schools may collect less revenue compared to relying on fair market value assessments, particularly in areas with rapidly increasing property values. Impact on school funding. Public schools rely heavily on property taxes for funding. A lower taxable digest, the total taxable value of properties, could result in less revenue unless the school board increases the millage rate to offset the reduction. Potential to offset with FLOST. If the school implements the FLOST, it can generate additional revenue for property tax relief. However, this revenue is generally applied to reduce property taxes rather than being directly allocated to schools. So they're saying that FLOST is generally applied to reduce property taxes, and it's not directly allocated to schools.
Well,
Okay.
but to the will of the people, that's a positive.
Yeah. So, summary. So, opting in could increase school funding unless could decrease school funding unless compensated by higher millage rates or alternative funding sources. So that was opting in. So opting into the House bill could decrease their funding unless they compensate otherwise.
And they just went up, what, 6%?
I know it was like 1.5 points.
What?
I don't know.
I'm sorry, not 6%. I think it was 6%. I don't know. I can't remember. But everybody was mad about it. Everybody was upset about it. School board did it anyway. So yeah. And if you're just joining this, once we upload this video, you can go through and watch this whole thing. If you have any questions, comment, and we will answer them the best of our ability. If we can't, we'll find someone that will.
Okay, so opting out. So if the school opted out of House Bill 581, it preserves the current property tax revenue structure, ensuring stable funding for the schools.
But they already have funding. That's not that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this whole shebang. So, how do you feel about this?
So I think I'm leaning more towards opting into the House Bill 581. Part of me just feels like the school is not going to use the funds like they should. So.
Well, and this is our personal.
Yeah.
So you take it each to their own.
It's kind of one of those things. It's like you really just have to figure out what's the best choice for taxpayers as a whole.
Right. Because think about the people that go to that school. It's the people. So they're going to be affected by these taxes. And so let's just think about it. If we put Cassie in that school and we're like, we want school to have more money, right? Because let's be clear on this. This does not take away money from the school directly. It would only reduce the funding if the property value was reevaluated and went up. If I'm understanding this right. Right? That's how I'm understanding this.
Wait, say that again?
So, okay. Now you're making me say this again. I can't remember. So, because I had it in my brain what I was going to say. So what I'm saying is, this will not take away this will not reduce their taxable income from the citizens of Twiggs County. So next year, if they're opt into this, will they lose funding from this?
So they could, because if we have a house if our property taxes were capped for inflation, but the fair market value skyrockets.
Right.
So if they opted out of the House bill, they would have got the skyrocketed property taxes.
That's what I'm saying.
So they would have gotten more money.
Right.
They're still going to get money.
Right. They're still
not
going
to get as much money.
Right. But what I'm saying is
they're not going
like this year. Okay, say they got $10,000 taxes from the citizens. citizens of Twiggs County. They're going to get $10,000 next year. But if this is opted out, they gain the potential of gaining more money from the citizens of Twiggs County.
If they opt out.
Right.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is, if they tell you, well, we need this, they're cutting our funding, that's not so.
But I feel like either way they're gonna get their money because, like they says, they could just increase the millage rate.
They just did. So that's what I'm saying. There's no sense in this. Sorry, I get a little.
But I'm just saying.
But
so if
it makes no sense.
if the House Bill 581 will protect homeowners as a whole in Twiggs County, why not just do the bill? See where inflation's going to happen.
Yes.
So our taxes are going to go up.
Yes.
Our property taxes are going to go up.
Yes.
It's going to happen. So if I'm understanding correctly, like you said, if they got $10,000 this year, they're going to get $10,000 next year, or they may get more if inflation rises the
Right,
property
because you
tax.
still have that 2%
So
with inflation.
if I'm understanding this right, they're still going to get their money. They're just not going to get a buttload if fair market value goes up.
That's what I'm saying. And the reevaluation is coming to Twiggs County.
So I feel like, why not opt into the bill? Because you can't.
So you're looking at it from a benefit of a school right now, correct? You're looking at it like...
No, I'm looking at it. So why not just opt into the bill?
Mhm.
Help the people that pay that pay for your schooling, pretty much, like
Yeah.
people in Twiggs County, help provide funds for that school.
Yeah.
This bill will help them, and I don't know, like I just want to be like, see how it goes, because honestly,
If you're opt out, it's gone forever.
because
That's what I'm
like it
saying.
says, honestly, in the end, if they feel like they want more money, they're just going to raise the millage rates.
Which they just did.
So why put the homeowners at a risk for a jump of fair market value
Correct.
and put them more in a burden just so your school can
Gets
get
more
more
money.
funding?
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, most property tax homeowners in Twiggs County do not like the fact that a lot of their money goes to the schools.
And let me explain why. And we live this because there's a few things. You look at the what is it called? The grade scores at the end of the year. Help me out
Yeah,
there.
just the statistics on the school. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of people just don't like the fact that a lot of their taxes are going to the school,
And a lot of
and a
people,
school that they don't feel like is performing like they should.
right? And I'm gonna I'm gonna say something because it takes time to change things. But let's be honest, that don't mean it cost $15,000 a student or whatever. Like, and the teachers are making more, and everybody's making more. That makes no sense. So, common sense tells me, like, what's the problem here? What's actually going on here? You know, you can peek in the door and kind of see kind of what's going on, but you don't know until you actually get in there and you see what's going on. I'm gonna say that. However, people are taxed to death. Okay.
Yeah.
And
And
people
we
are
do-
getting tired of it.
And we don't know where the money goes, honestly, because we feel like half of the school board meetings are done in whatever private sessions.
Yes, and I'm gonna make a remark on that. I've looked at every minutes, and I went through and I've looked at them. Most decision making, you can go to their site and you can go to their minutes and you can look at it. Most of decision making is done in private sessions,
Something like that.
something like that. And I feel like that's not being transparent.
Yeah.
I know some things have to be done in those closed doors for whatever reasons. But if we're spending money on X amount of dollars on this, that, and the third, that needs to be public. That needs to be in the minutes so people can see it. If you are being transparent and you're doing the right thing by the will of the people or by the people for the kids, be transparent. So that's my take. We don't. Our kids will not go to Twiggs County. My wife went to Twiggs County. She graduated from Twiggs County. Valedictorian. Salutatorian. Whatever. So the reason why our kids, because of this, we want better for our children. Okay, so we take them to Black County, and there's a lot of people that do that. There's a lot of people. I know one guy has used free Suburbans or Tahoes that he had to buy and beat back and forth to go back and forth to West Lawrence. And it's like, he didn't get a tax deduction off that. What I'm saying is, but he still paid the taxes that goes towards that school. Mm-hmm. But he's traveling so his children can have a better education. I think a lot of people can understand that and relate to that. And I think that's the real frustration here, because it's sad that you have to drive, or you feel like you have to drive past that school to go to Lawrence County, to Blakely County, or to a private school because you want better for your child. And if the school would listen and could change that and make this a great school, our children would go there. And we would be glad to provide funding in reasonable and effective ways. That's kind of I'm gonna say that, and I guess we're gonna wrap this up. But what else should we talk about? What else do you want to know? I feel like we're gonna have these so often. I thought this was a great topic. Like I said, this file will be uploaded to the file section in this group, and you'll be able to read this from word to word, and then all these that we made will be there too. So, thank y'all for watching. I don't know if there's anything else my wife would like to say.
I don't think so.
So, thank y'all, and see you next time.
See ya. We're still here.
What?
We're still here.